Hi, in this video I want to discuss the subject of um, statements. Things happen regardless of statements. Statements, like I've mentioned before, like words, and the disconnection between words and um, actions. Words, speaking a word, obviously words have to exist through some kind of action. It's an idea that exists, and ideas exist through things physically existing as actions and reactions. An idea is ethereal, but it's something that exists in the physical world, and it's an idea. Regardless, those things are the same, one and the same, but also there's a complete disconnection, or at least a logical disconnection when it comes to those ideas. They still exist in the same world, and it's something that exists because it's based off of something. Ideas come from some kind of physical manifestation. Um, because ideas are just representations of mixtures of objects that we see in the environment and having those objects mixed together. So the idea is based on a physical mechanism causing these things to physically happen based on things that we physically, like the force feedback of perception, and you see it and then you project and you see things back, and where you're sucking in the environment through your senses. Obviously these things exist in one and the same, but there's obviously a logical disconnect when it comes to those things. Just because you say you're going to do something doesn't mean you're going to do it. This means that you said you're going to do it. And sometimes semantics can be complicated when it comes to understanding just how hard it can be to understand those distinctions between saying you're going to do something. You didn't keep a promise. Obviously, he just said he'd make a promise. I said I would do this, and there was a word that came out of his mouth, but it's not this, or his or her mouth, but it's just the same. It's just a statement that was made, and the statement happened, but that doesn't mean what they say, is going to come true. Sort of like, oh, well, how do you say a word? You say a word this way or that way, or is this actually exist? Well, it doesn't matter. The word exists as an idea. It's something that physically manifested itself as some kind of thing that existed. It exists as a word, regardless of how you say it. The letters exist. It doesn't matter how you draw them. There's forms of syllables and how they sound. Um, it doesn't really matter how you want to word or claim it, or this or that, or how you want to say it. Thing is, you can say it either way, and the only thing with objectivists, or the idea of thinking things are objective, regardless of your subjective opinion, and making those distinctions as well, is that objective is just saying that things exist in this reality, and every idea that we have based on our opinion of liking or disliking is just based off of that. And that itself is an objective truth as well. That our likes and dislikes and our biases and what we believe or not believe or know or do not know is just another physical manifestation of objective truth. And that's all we're really saying. It's not really anything else. We're not saying that you don't have an opinion. We're not saying you can't live in a fantasy world. It's just saying that your it's just a subjective lives inside the objective. That's the basic idea. Your subjective reality exists inside the objective world. And the objective world is everything that created your subjective reality, and your subjective reality is something that exists inside and created by every single aspect of the objective world. And your subjective reality is an objective truth. No more, no less. But going back to the whole statement thing, they're both pretty much connected. But um, statements, difference between that, like I've mentioned before, you make a promise, you do this, you do that. You say something, but something doesn't happen. Well, obviously you said it, and that was an action. It's disconnected from the fact that you said you want to do something, or something was going to happen. Sometimes things don't happen. Sometimes things are self-fulfilling prophecies, and they do happen. Sometimes things happen because you made a plan, sort of like making that disconnect because I'm going to do this, sort of like reading tarot cards or something. All of a sudden you're self-motivating yourself, and it's based on your own motivation that you're going to do something. And it's not based on some kind of magical will that happens beyond your control. It's something that obviously is beyond your control to a certain extent, based on the whole world as a whole, but it's something that you have control of. And once you've motivated yourself and you've done those things and you've worked yourself up and you've worked yourself up into that kind of mindset to do something based on, say, reading a tarot card or something, it almost in a way fulfills itself based on self-fulfilling prophecy or things like that, because it's something that's going to happen based on self-motivation. You've talked yourself into doing it, and it's more likely going to happen. You're going to find connections, any connections that are you can find, and you're going to find those connections, and all of a sudden you're going to say, it did come true in one way or another. Regardless of that, yes, there's a general distinction between statements and things happening. But things just happen, regardless of the statements. You can say it's not going to happen, but it happens. That doesn't mean you're lying. It just means you should have been more reasonable with your language. Sort of like not making promises, saying, As far as I know, being careful with language. This is almost going down to an issue of language. You have to say, as far as I know, or this or that, or just to make sure that leaving it open for not necessarily interpretation, but leaving it open for the possibility of something else happening. Not making promises when you can't make them. You know, telling a person or telling an idea and or going back and correcting yourself or saying or apologizing to a person for not having the promises that you were to make. At least acknowledging those things and making those things, carrying those traits of understanding not only language but understanding reasonable ethics, language, understanding the feelings and values that exist not only in yourself but in others, self-respect, dignity, or whatever it may be. If you want to have some kind of feelings of pride over it, I guess that can be useful as well. But generally speaking, I guess it's another way of saying be careful with language and understand that language doesn't always mean, or saying something doesn't always mean it's going to happen, or just because you say something doesn't mean whatever was going to happen is going to happen in response to the thing that you, um, either in response or in no response. Obviously, everything's connected to a certain extent, but regardless of that response that you feel, something's going to happen regardless. The wheels in motion are going to set in motion. They're going to move in a certain way regardless. It's going to be something that happens no matter what. So it's going to be something that is beyond your control to a certain extent and doesn't. It can only do so much to change those things. So regardless of that, it's something you only have so much control over. So anything else to mention on this? Yeah, things just happen regardless of what you say. So you can say whatever you want, but things are just going to happen, and regardless of what you say, things just happen. So like this, and things are just happening. I'm just saying the same thing. It's just the same process. So regardless of that, I don't really think there's much else to say on this subject. So until next time, if there's anything else to mention, there's always another time, another video, another place, or the same place, another video. So thank you, and until next time, bye.